So please help me in welcoming Tali and Siena.
Okay, hi, I'm Siena. I'm also a hub coordinator. Me and Tali are here today to talk about climate justice. And we ask that you ask your questions at the end or give me comments. If you like something, we're going to show some videos you can snap. Okay. So we've been asked to speak about how to get young people involved in climate movement. But young people are already involved. We've seen millions of young people leaving their schools and workplaces to strike for a livable future. For example, in Grand Rapids, we've had already 2 strikes in 2019. We had one in September, and we had one in December, and these were part of global strikes. So now Tali and I are going to talk about why we're here today. So at Sunrise, storytelling is a big part of our movement culture, and we believe that the way to address the climate crisis isn't by using numbers and saying that there are like 40 parts per billion of pieces of carbon in the atmosphere. We believe that stories are much more compelling. So we're going to get a little personal. So the reason I joined Sunrise is because around last year, there was a lot of flooding in Grand Rapids, especially near where I live, around the river. And my best friend's room is in his basement. And a lot of my time in the past 2 years has been spent in his room. I have my personal belongings there. He has belongings from his childhood and art that he's made over the years and things like documents his mom has sent him from Mexico. And we both have stuff down there that can't be replaced and that we hold very dear to our identities. And during that flooding, his basement was flooded, and that included his room. And a lot of the stuff that we both had in there was washed away by the flood. And it took away a lot of what we held dear to us. And seeing the way that it affected him and the way that it affected me, and how in the climate crisis, it takes away our comfort. Like, if things progress the way that they're going, we're going to lose our livelihoods, and we're going to lose the ability to feel comfortable. And I think that was, in my mind, what was at stake for us. And I think that's a big part of why I'm in Sunrise today. Tali?
Perfect. Hi, I'm Tali. Is my mic on?
Turn it on all the way to the side.
On here?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Is it on now?
Give it a second. I'm going to try again.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm here today for a lot of reasons, as I'm sure you guys are. I'm here because I care about the earth, and I care about the people and the places that are on it. But probably the moment when I realized, like, I need to be a part of this. I need to, like, start acting on these solutions was in June of 2017 when Donald Trump announced that we were pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement. Like, I couldn't believe it, right? How could we had entered something that was so good just a couple years, like, previously, and then, like, all of a sudden it was gone. And and we're still not pulled out of it yet, but that moment, like, has really stuck with me, and that feeling, and that's when I decided, like, I've got to be a part of this. And it took me a couple of years. I got involved in Sunrise this past August, but here I am, here we are, and, like, we've got to do something. So that's what we're doing. Okay.
I did.
Oh, okay. So, I'm sorry. In this presentation, we're going to take you through what youth climate activism looks like today, who we are at Sunrise, what we do, and how you can get involved. So when you think of youth climate activism, this is probably what you think of. Has anyone here heard of these strikes or been to one or know someone who did? Yeah? Awesome. Okay. So these are some of the youth organizations that are behind all these things. In the United States specifically. Internationally, there are tons of organizations. But here are some of the ones in the United States that are working on planning these huge strikes. Up here, Sunrise with the sunshine, is us. And so we're going to tell you a little bit more about who we are and what we do.
This is a short video about who we are and what we do.
Internet support.
feel like time is speeding up? It is. We are living through one of the most epic, worldwide changes in human history, and the outcome is still uncertain. It all depends on one question. Will the young people of the world quietly watch as everything unravels around us, or will we decide to unite and set humanity on a better course? For 10,000 years, people have depended on a stable climate that shaped where we built our cities, how we grew our food, and the stories we told about the places we call home. Now, the climate is changing, and home just doesn't feel like home anymore. It's happening everywhere, and it's getting worse every day. If we do nothing, the costs are hard to imagine. Solutions are ready to go. We can stop climate change and create millions of good jobs in the process. Wind and solar energy are nearly cheaper than fossil fuels. New jobs are being created across the country, putting solar panels on rooftops, building wind farms, renovating homes to be more efficient. Whole communities are being transformed. We could be on the brink of a new age of health and prosperity. But a greedy handful of wealthy fossil fuel executives are standing in the way of progress. 40 years ago, they knew the truth about climate change, and they knew it was their fault. Ever since then, they've been covering up the science and buying out politicians to help them. Money talks. Rather than being punished, they've been rewarded by corrupt politicians. Exxon CEO Rex Tillerson is now negotiating climate treaties for the United States, and Exxon is raking in cash while people around the world are hurting. To keep up this scheme, they pit us against each other by skin color, political party, and where we live. They say that one community must suffer for another to thrive. We say no more. Let's review. Everyone can see the planet warming before our eyes. We have everything we need to fix the problem, and we can seriously help the economy in the process. The only thing standing in the way are these corrupt politicians and their corporate sponsors. It's up to us, you and me, to remove them from power and set this country on the right track. And we have a plan to do it. It's called Sunrise. Politicians care about one thing more than anything else: getting elected. That means when their stance on climate change means the difference between them winning and losing an election, we'll get what we want. In 2018, politicians across the country will be running for re-election. This is our chance to make them need us and make history. We'll connect with millions of Americans, expose the corrupt influence of fossil fuel executives on our politics, and elect leaders who will stand up for the health and well-being of all people. Nope.
So, that was a lot, but that's who we are. That's a really big intro. But now we're going to tell you what does Sunrise Grand Rapids look like. And if you live closer to Kalamazoo or Lansing, we have two really cool groups there too that are part of Sunrise also. So here's the climate strikes, as we talked about. We've had two in 2019 in Grand Rapids, in September and in December. And these were really well attended by people of all ages. And we met with Senator Gary Peters' staffers to ask him to embrace the Green New Deal, which we're going to tell you about now.
Yeah, so this is about our history and strategy. So climate change is intensifying, and we're finally talking about real solutions. And for example, the Green New Deal, which we're going to get into, and Tali has a shirt that says Green New Deal on it. So to stop climate change, we need the transforming of our public transportation system. We need to build and retrofit thousands of buildings, to invest enormously in our renewable energy system, to reform our agricultural system, and to repair and update old infrastructure. And you may be thinking, this seems like a lot, and this seems like a lot at once too. Like, how are we going to do this in such a small frame of time? But we have a Green New Deal. So that's what we're going to talk about now. So the 5 pillars of the Green New Deal are to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions through a fair and just transition for all communities and workers. And so what that means is essentially we are going to provide jobs for people who maybe are working in coal mines or people who are working in the fossil fuel industry. Not for fossil fuel executives, but for the workers who are on the ground and that are going to be most affected by this transition. And frontline communities are like communities of color and Native American communities that are most affected by climate change. And places like in Grand Rapids where Viant Medical has put their poison gas into the air, low-income communities of color. And so the second pillar of the Green New Deal is to create millions of good, high-wage jobs and ensure prosperity and economic security for all people of the United States. So how we're going to do this is we're going to create jobs in the sustainable energy field. And so these are sustainable jobs too. These aren't going to be jobs where you don't know if you're going to have one the next day. These are going to be sustainable, high-wage jobs. We're going to invest in the infrastructure and industry of the United States to sustainably meet the challenges of the 21st century, like we mentioned before, retrofitting thousands of buildings and making buildings sustainable for our new world, essentially, that we're going to usher in with the Green New Deal. So instead of using like natural gas to power your house, we're going to be using more sustainable sources of fuel, like solar energy. And our fourth pillar is to secure clean air and water, climate community resilience, healthy food, access to nature, and a sustainable environment for all. So for example, this would mean preventing things like the Wolverine worldwide disaster that put PFAS in thousands of people's water. And like Viant Medical, making them not put poisonous gas into the air of communities of color. And the fifth pillar is to promote justice and equity by stopping current, preventing future, and repairing the historic oppression of frontline and vulnerable communities. Again, these are communities of color, disabled communities, low-income communities, Native American communities. And we are aware that the Green New Deal, its name is derived from the New Deal in the 1920s, and the New Deal was notoriously racist. And the Green New Deal is better because it is not only not racist, but it is anti-racist. So this is a graphic we have. These are all the co-sponsors. So 15% of the House has co-sponsored the Green New Deal, which is actually like a really big deal, and we're very excited about that. And then these are some other graphics that people have made, and especially in Sunrise, we believe that art is a big part of environmentalism, and that it's very important in the environmental community because it really connects with people. Like again, art and stories are going to connect with the people that it matters to connect with more than numbers. So, to make a Green New Deal a reality, we have to change what society and our politicians think is possible. Here's a video. Yeah. So this is called a bird dog. This is where a person asks a politician a really hard question or a very direct question to get them in a hard spot and to make them acknowledge like what they've done.
Senator, if you really care about young Americans, why did you take $750,000 from fossil fuel executives in your last Senate election?
I'm so glad I live in America where she can say that. In a lot of countries you go to jail. I'm grateful that I live in America. So let me segue into that because Adam talked about protesters.
I'm not a protester. I just want to know why you aren't answering our questions.
I don't have a problem with any of that. You know why? Because one of the issues I'm working on now involve nations where that's not possible.
Are you going to do a town hall for us to hear the people?
I'm not going to come. People get rude. It's good. On both sides.
But you hear the people.
I've heard the people. But as far as a law that we can pass in Washington to change the weather, there's no such thing. On the contrary, there is laws they want us to pass. There are laws they want us to.
Perfect.
So, why do we do escalated moral protest? Well, over the years it's been proven that moral protest grabs the people's eyes because we're not violent, we're just showing how climate change and other issues have affected us. And it really puts the suffering of the people on display and it grabs people's empathy. So like, for example, if any of you know about the sit-in we had in Nancy Pelosi's office with AOC, this is one of the events that put Sunrise on the map. Actually, our statewide coordinator was there too. Yeah, so that's a really cool action.
Okay, so we need, that example with Marco Rubio is like, he's like the epitome of what we don't want, right? He's taking all this fossil fuel money, he won't listen to what his young constituents or any constituents have to say, and all he wants, he's in politics for the money and for the power, and that's, and for the money and for the power, and that's not okay. When we look at the spending in the 2016 election, this is like really staggering, right? Like, we can see that the Koch brothers, which is just like dirty, dirty money, gave almost as much money as the two parties, which should parties have this much money, we don't know. But this is what we don't want. And things like the Citizens United versus FEC case in 2010, which like repealed a lot of campaign finance laws, are like not cool. And that's part of what like the Green New Deal and all this change that we want is like taking the dirty money out of politics and making it for the people, as it should be. So, in order to do all these things that we want to do, we need what government and people to think that it can happen. So what we want to do is build Sunrise and build our society into a movement that can use mass cooperations, like those climate strikes that we just talked about, for everyone to be as creative and courageous as we can. So, here's what we need to win. We need people power, political power, and a new common sense. So people power, that's things just like this. We get people power by talking to people, by having events, by making sure that everyone knows why and how we're here and what we want. Political power looks like getting people in Congress and in our local elections like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and all these other really cool people, so that when we tell them what we want, that they do it. And a new common sense, that's the hardest one, right? To make people really believe. But we do that by telling our stories, by watching videos, and by having conversations about the big change that we want and that we need. So, yeah. People power are hopefully people just like you that come to things, learn, grow, etc. with us. And so political power is, we need everyone at every level of government. Like if you guys know about Kalamazoo recently declaring a climate emergency, that's what we're talking about. Because if we can get all these places to say like there's something wrong, that's a really good step. And again, the new common sense, we have to believe. And we have to make people believe that this is our future that we're talking about, and our future is everything. So this is hard, but we can do it. So here is Sunrise's current plan. Organize, vote, and strike. So if you guys know about our climate strikes that we've been talking about, there was the big one in September, the big one in December, and then Earth Day this year. It's the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and it's going to be really big all across the world. Young people and people of all ages are going to be turning out to show the world that we care and we're here and that we need to do something about it. So, organize. What does that look like? That looks like coming to things like this, working on congressional campaigns, and doing local work like the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Committee. These are all the Sunrise hubs all across the world. So if you can see, we're probably right in there. There's a lot of them. We have over 300 Sunrise groups all across the world doing things just like us. And so voted. We, as a movement, have endorsed Bernie Sanders because he's made it clear throughout his political career and in this campaign that he grasps the scale of the climate crisis and the urgency with which we must do with it and the opportunity that we have to come together to do it. But if he doesn't win, would the stakes of the climate crisis demand that we can't sit this election out? No matter what, we're going to work hard at advocating for the defeat of Donald Trump. So vote. That's the next part of our plan, right? Organize, vote. So in less than 2 weeks is the March 10th primary. I hope everyone in here that's of voting age votes, and for me. And the congressional primary is August 4th, and of course the general election, November 3rd. So make sure you're registered. But even if you're not, you can do same-day voter registration.
Okay, well, one of the people in the picture,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, on the left, her name is Michaela Menkel, and she's actually from Sunrise, Grand Rapids, but she was recently part of the fellowship in Iowa, and she actually met Bernie Sanders and was a big part of the Iowa caucus.
So, as we can see, when we organize, when we vote, and when we strike, we make things happen. When we look at what has happened in the three primaries or caucuses right now, Bernie Sanders has won all of them. And of course, strike. So that brings us to what our hub is focused on in September, December, and now April.
Yeah, so this is the next part of our plan. So our next strike is actually on Earth Day, and that's really cool. It's going to be April 22nd, and if you guys are interested, I'll give you more information after.
Yes.
So this is a quote from Obama at the beginning of his presidency. I'm absolutely certain that generations from now we will be able to look back and tell our children that this was the moment when the rise of the oceans began to slow and our planet began to heal. So Sunrise resonates with this, even though this ended up not being the case. We do resonate with this quote because we want to put forth the action that this quote represents.
I think what's most remarkable about this quote is how hopeful it is. Because oftentimes we see conservation, environmentalism, and climate change as just all negative, and right now we're in a really negative spot. But we have to believe that it'll get better, right? We have to believe.
So here's some next steps. What can we do right now? Vote in the March 10th primary in Michigan, and check your voter registration and encourage others to vote. So specifically in Grand Rapids, where we're from, we're doing a lot of voter registration. We're really going out and encouraging people to vote. And we have endorsed Bernie Sanders, but really the main goal for the 2020 elections is defeating Donald Trump. So Earth Day, April 22nd, 2020, the biggest global climate strike yet. So in Grand Rapids, it will be 12 p.m. at Rose Park Circle downtown. If any of you aren't familiar with Grand Rapids, Rose Park Circle is right in Center City by our Grand Rapids Art Museum. And it's where the ice rink is in the winter. So if you want to be a part of this massive global uprising, you can sign up to strike and get our email list now. So Tali will go around with, never mind.
You can find
Yeah, you can
right
at
at
the table outside.
At the table outside.
Yeah.
And we would love for you to join our email list so that we can contact you about when we have.
Yeah, and it's not, it's not like a big national email list. We're not going to be sending you emails every day saying random things. It's actually me and Tali and our other coordinator Kira writing the emails and sending them to you about local actions and local meetings. And you can email us back and we'll actually answer you. So this allows us to remind you about the strike and invite you to bring your friends. So a big part of Sunrise is building a community. And if you don't bring your friends, if it's just you, that's fine. But if you bring your friends, it makes our community even bigger. And we really appreciate that. Okay, so this is a Bernie graphic because we really love Bernie at Sunrise. So the Michigan primary is March 10th. Wow. So Michigan has same-day voter registration this year, so if you aren't registered to vote and you want to be, get registered same day as the primary. So also here's a link. Well, here's a link to find out more about voter registration, but online voter registration did end this Monday.
If you have any questions about, I bet everyone in here is already all registered and good to go.
But if you're not,
if you do, head to that website and I can tell you your polling place and all that good stuff.
So to keep young people involved, environmental organizations need to integrate social justice into their work, fight for solutions at the scale and speed we need, example, the Green New Deal and transitioning to 100% renewable energy by 2030, and make space and listen. So this is kind of to recap what we've gone over about how climate organizations need to get young people involved. Because we see that in a lot of other climate organizations, there aren't a whole lot of young people. And we think that that should change because it's really the young people that are going to be most affected by this because we're going to have to live with this world. So, what can you do?
Oh, so there's so many things that you guys can do if you're interested and you want to hear more to get involved with us. So reiterating what it said on the last slide, I know so many times in environmental organizations it feels like we're the young people, but like we are here and we do care. Just sometimes young folks don't know what to do or where to start. So make sure to invite young people into your conversations. If you know people in middle, high school, college, like ask them what they think and like invite them to join your meetings because young people and people of color and people in low-income areas are hit the hardest by climate change. So we want to make sure that all voices are heard. And yeah, again, talk to everyone that you know about real solutions, right? Because sometimes when we talk about saving the earth, we only talk about reusable water bottles and lunch boxes, but all of which are great. Like, do it for sure. But even if everyone used a reusable water bottle, we still wouldn't be able to fix this crisis. So making sure that you use your water bottle and like come to a Sunrise meeting or vote for someone who will create real change.
Also, individual reduction isn't always the answer. In a lot of cases, we need actual systematic change to really solve things like the climate crisis. And individual reduction can actually leave a lot of communities out, like disabled communities and low-income communities. Not everyone can afford to be vegan, not everyone can afford to be vegetarian. Disabled folks have issues using metal straws sometimes because they're too heavy, or using paper straws because they dissolve. So just keep in mind when you're talking about personal reduction that you acknowledge that it's not possible for everyone.
And then more actionable items. We would absolutely love for everyone here to come to the climate strike on April 22nd. This is going to be like such a big thing all across Michigan and the other places all across the country and all across the world. So we would love for you to be at this strike. It's going to be, as we've already said, the details, Wednesday the 22nd, 12 p.m., Rosa Parks. And then also, we have bi-weekly meetings. I know not everyone here is like from the Grand Rapids area, but if you are or you have a way to get there, we would love to see you at our meetings. They're bi-weekly on Sundays at 3, and our next one is Sunday, March 15th, so a week from tomorrow. And they're open to everyone. We would love to see you there to talk about climate crisis, climate change, and of course, vote in.
Does anyone have any questions?
Anybody have any question cards? Started on one. Give you that one to start with.
Perfect, thank you.
I can start with this one. This is not too hard. Do we use any social media to reach out? Absolutely. We're young people. That's what we do. I'm sorry we didn't put that on there. That's our email. But we also do Facebook, Instagram.
Our Facebook and Instagram and Twitter are all Sunrise Movement GR, same as our email.
So we would love for you to follow us there, reach out. That's a really good way to see our posts, to see what we're up to, and to get involved.
So my question was, how do we get youth like you involved and interested? So what I see a lot of, personally what got me interested was actually like, I do poetry in my area, I do spoken word, and I think one of my shows, McKaylin, who was in that picture before, was at it because it was with an organization that she did spoken word with, and she encouraged me because of the content of my poems, which is typically related to racial justice in education or like equity in education. She suggested that I become part of the Sunrise Movement and that I come to a training. And so in Grand Rapids, we have a lot of trainings in like talking to students that you feel would be interested, or talking to like just other community members that are kids and telling them that, hey, there's this group of kids that meets on Sundays and they eat hummus and talk about environmentalism. Like, I think especially for kids who feel ostracized in their own communities, talking about things like social justice, telling them that there is a community of kids that want to talk about this and that want to see change really connects with them. I know it did with me. So yeah.
Can I add on? Okay, perfect. Another thing that I see, especially in young people, but in everyone, regarding like climate change and environmentalism, is apathy, right? People feeling like it's just hopeless. Like, this is such a big problem. What can I do? What can any of us do? And I feel that too. It is really hard sometimes. But like, once you join together, once you become part of like a community that like, we're friends, you know, everyone knows each other, that's when you feel powerful. That's when you feel like you're doing something, because you are climate striking. And like, when all of us come together and we do things like bird dogging, right, like that video of Marco Rubio, like, we really do things. So once you come and become part of a community, that's when you feel like you're making change.
And also make it open. Like, everyone can know each other, but make sure that it's known that like new people are welcome, because it can also feel closed off in that way, in that same way. So I think just like, and giving the kids space too. Yeah.
This is a two-part question. I'm wondering if your youth groups go into the schools to on the Sunrise youth group movements. This is kind of like a suggestion. Maybe you're doing this already, but I would encourage you to try in some way to maybe connect with students in sports activities, because that's a good way to get a very good diverse group of students, and possibly to engage them. And then when you do public talks or what have you, you could also invite them out and encourage them to show up at your meetings and things like that. So I don't know if you're doing that already, but I know like, sports activities like basketball, football, in our area, they tend to get a lot of students and a very diverse crowd.
Okay, yeah, so for me, at my school, I've tried to do that. And my principal, I've tried to hand out flyers, and I've tried to do class wraps, but it's been widely unsupported by my principal and the vice principal. Their main reason is that it's too political, it's too radical, the school can't support that. And I think there are loopholes around that. I think, hanging flyers from the bathroom ceiling, that works. Maybe not maybe not first choice, but like at like school events, if I were to hand out flyers, I would get in trouble for that. I've asked him if I can put it on bulletin. He said, no, we can't support that, it's political. I've asked if I can do class wraps. He said, no, I can't support that, it's too political. I've asked if I can just hand out flyers at stuff like sports or at lunch, and he's like, no, we can't be caught supporting something so political. And at the time, we had not endorsed any candidate. We had actually been known for not being political, being bipartisan, not endorsing any political party or candidate. At the time, it was strictly like, we just want climate justice for frontline communities, and we want it to be like acknowledged. And so now it's become even more difficult, at my school at least, for me to be able to do stuff like that, because now he can actually say it's too political, and have a point, I guess. So yeah, there's a few challenges.
Yeah, I think one thing that's hard about like getting into schools is that like it's really hard to reach anyone at a school that you don't have a connection to. So if any of you guys know someone like, oh, I know a student at this high school that seems interested, like letting us know so that we can talk to them. It's really hard to get into schools that like, because you can't just go into a school. At our own schools, we've tried for sure. I've had a couple teachers that let me like just talk to my class about it a little bit, and like that works really well. So we're trying, but it's hard.
But the sports idea was
the sports idea is really good.
We've got time for probably one more question. If anybody else got their hand up?
Yeah, I don't know.
No, let somebody else.
Oh, did you have a question?
Sure,
Just-
yeah.
We're doing it this way for right now. We didn't have a lot.
It's kind of a two-part question. So how are you different from Extinction Rebellion, and like why Sunrise per se, or like why that over in addition to Extinction Rebellion? And then I'll answer that one.
Sure. So we work with Extinction Rebellion, but we're definitely different in a lot of ways. I don't know a ton about it, but what I do know is that they feel a lot like, do anything at all costs for the climate, and we really believe that being like as nonviolent as possible is like the best way to
We are nonviolent.
Yeah.
We are not.
Yeah, we are not.
Yeah.
But like things like we don't do at all costs.
Yeah, so like we're less by any means necessary. We believe more in like escalated moral protests than we do in, lying down the middle of the road. I think the safety of our participants is most important to us. Like we have trainings for people who are going to be talking to police, and they're typically the people that are the least at risk for being discriminated against. And I think a few ways in which we're different, like related to that, but also I think our base is younger. I don't see a whole lot of middle schoolers in XR. We have locally at least like a group of 5 middle school girls that come to our meetings, and it's growing. And I think we're seen as more approachable because we are less about violence or less about by any means necessary, although we do believe in climate justice. We just don't believe in violence because violence doesn't connect with people.
I'm sorry, XR is absolutely nonviolent.
Okay,
Absolutely.
yeah. But like we just don't believe in like at any cost. Like we don't believe in putting anyone in like danger or anything.
All right, you had a second part to your question?
Yeah, so kind of going off what you were saying, I know you're more youth-based. I have heard of support groups for Sunrise for older people to get involved. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we have like strike circles in Young at Heart. Young at Heart is like a set of guidelines for our members over 35. And we have like support groups, like if you guys know what Slack is, we have like chats for over 35 members and stuff. And like within ours, we've talked to a few of our members about Young at Heart and just like leaning on each other for support, especially going into 2020. That's one thing that Sunrise has been pretty big on in Michigan is leaning on each other. And for our older members, we would love to have older members, but typically in like leadership positions like hub coordinators, we do have under 35 people. But like locally, we have talked about Young at Heart and that they're welcome, and that we have one member who we have kind of given responsibility for if any of the over 35 members feel like they don't have a voice, they can, talk to him, and we'll talk about it with them. And we believe in like giving them a voice, but also giving youth room to speak too, because we often get left out in environmental spaces.
So everyone of all ages is always welcome. We just want to make sure that, especially younger people, everyone gets to hear, to make sure that their voice is heard.
Yeah, the Young at Heart guidelines are more just like giving them a sense of their responsibility in the movement. So like supporting rather than like taking over. So supporting the youth rather than taking over what we're doing. So that would look like maybe one of our members, let's say Alma, she is a painter. And maybe instead of like taking over our whole like banner painting, she'll provide us with like supplies and she'll give the kids guidance instead of being like, I'm gonna do all of this.
All right, I think we're good for this session. Thank you guys.